Now, to bring an impactful narrative, no one better than to have an impactful person. When I met him, he introduced himself to me as being trained by ninjas, being a stage hypnotist, and a lookalike of Bob Marley. So for the rest, I'm going to leave it all open to him.
And all in 8 seconds, so you got it.
Voila. So he's going to be our guidance this session for bringing a narrative.
Thank you so much. I can honestly say I've never been introduced like that in my entire life before, so that's fantastic. It's a first for me. Let me just make sure that I'm good for timing, because I'd hate to bore you, and I want to make sure that you get as much as you possibly can out of this entire experience. Can you hear me at the back okay?
Perfect.
Okay. First thing I'm going to say before I start anything, I'm meeting you for the first time, many of you, and also watching you in action, talking about the stuff earlier. My job today is to turn you into superheroes, which I will do for every single one here. I'll make sure you are superpowered before you leave here. But one thing I will say is projection is very important, because some people are louder, some people are quieter. It doesn't matter what you say, it only matters what they hear. And if they can't hear it, then it disappears. So whenever you're doing stuff, you have to be able to make sure the audience is able to pick up what's going on. Now, one of the things that happens with this, I'm going to give you insider secrets. I'm going to tell you everything I know. Right, so I'm going to show you how I would normally walk onto a stage. I'd walk out and I'd say, "Good morning, everybody, good morning."
Good morning.
You can do much better than that. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much. That was 8 seconds. In 8 seconds, everybody in this room will do exactly what I want them to do after that. And that will happen to you when you do that same thing with your audiences wherever they are. You train them, or they will train you. The way I opened it up, I said, "Good morning, everybody, good morning," which is a weird thing to say. Why would you say it twice? Not because I want to say good morning, but because I want to train you to say it back, like teaching you a chorus to a song. Then when I say it like that, I know that I'm actually not saying good morning to you, because it could be good afternoon, it could be good evening. What I'm actually saying is, stop talking, put your stuff down, leave your phone alone. Daddy's here, I'm not saying daddy's here, but you get the general point. There's a grown-up in the room, with no disrespect, but that's what you have to drive. Then the second line is, "Come on, we can do it much better than that." What I'm doing with that line is I'm breaking what's called the fourth wall in TV and entertainment. So for anybody who's ever watched, what was that program with Kevin Spacey before he became the worst person on the planet, where he's a president?
House of Cards.
House of Cards, right. So the best bit, how many people watch House of Cards? Okay, yes. The best bit in it is when he talks to the camera.
Yes.
Because he's dealing with some politician or something, and he turns to the camera and he says, "I hate that guy. And I'm going to make sure that he never ever steps foot in this place again. Watch this." Then he goes back into it. That's what I did there. I broke away from being a presenter. I broke into we're in the same gang conversation. Come on, we can do much better than that. And then I went back to the beginning. I said, "Good morning, everybody. Good morning." Raise my hands. Good morning. You had no choice but to join in on the final bit. Good morning. And then I thanked you for doing it. That means that two things happen. First of all, you've worked out, maybe this guy knows how to work an audience, but secondly, I know that the level of good morning I get out of you from this point onwards is also the level of enthusiasm I'm going to get out of you for the rest of the day. So if I'm working with you, and often this comes from working with organizations where I've got a room full of people who don't really deal with people, but deal with computers or tech or engineering, sometimes at the best I'll get a good morning kind of thing. I know that that's the best they can be. So when I work all the way through and asking rhetorical questions, when I get back to that level, I know they're with me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've just done it to you again. Right, so there you are. I did promise to share some insider tips. It's really powerful. I'll show you before I even get into this. Also, this is an amazing one. How many people have gone on stage and spoken and given a presentation and the audience just stares at you when you finish? and you walk off and you're thinking, did that work? Did it not work? And you're hoping either a trap door like this one would open up in front of you, or somebody would come up and give you a bunch of flowers, and they never do. Yeah. Well, do you know how to get a round of applause from any audience anywhere? Let me share this with you. It's very powerful. I wouldn't necessarily do it in a boardroom full of decision makers, because it's kind of creepy for them, but it's a way to work it with any audience. Thank you for being an amazing audience. Give yourselves a massive round of applause. Thank you. You don't do it and expect a round of applause. You thank them and get them to clap for themselves. Well, no, it's not desperate. Here's the thing for you. I'm going to teach you some amazing tricks today that will change your life and make you incredibly powerful. Now, if the only thing I taught you was how to guarantee in 8 seconds the room is on your side, and guarantee at the end of it they'll give you a round of applause, you have got the whole room in your hands unless you mess it up. That's an incredibly powerful thing. What most speakers do is they go out and they hope it works. I've got no idea whether it does or not. With what I've shown you from that very beginning bit, you can start off by saying, you can do your presentation and you do it in chunks, and every now and again you just check to see with people whether they've got it or not. And you say, I don't really understand that. And you look around and people nod or they don't nod. And a little trick I'll tell you, which is not my presentation, is in an audience of, what, we've got about 25 people in here, then you've got a certain part of people, maybe about 20% of the audience, who are called noddies. I'll explain what they are in a moment. Most audiences stare at you like this. When they're really happy, they're like this. When they hate you, when they're so excited they can't wait to talk to you later, that's your lot, really. But what you get in every audience is you get a handful. So say about 20% of your audience are nodding with you as you speak. They're how you tell whether your audience is with you or not. You check for noddies. Now, has anybody got a dog? Okay, right. Anybody's got a dog, you know they can speak to you without speaking. They know when time for a walk, time for a biscuit, time for a pet, time to be happy. They don't speak, but it's really loud when they tell you about this. Audiences, and no disrespect again, are kind of like that, because you tell with the noddies whether it's working or not. So does that make sense?
Yes.
And the noddies, everyone's done into noddies now. Well then, if you've got a pretty stale audience that's not trained and not into it quite as much, or a really sort of kind of an audience that's standing back and strokey chin kind of audience, then the noddies will still exist. So you can say, does that make sense? And the noddies will stop nodding if it doesn't. And then you say, do you want me to do it again? And then they'll nod. So you do it again, and then you say, does that make sense? And they nod. And then you can move on. So that way you can tell how your content is working with every audience that you're with. Does that make sense? Yeah. There you go. I can go goodbye now. All right, so let's get into the presentation, which I haven't even gone through yet. So, as you probably guessed in huge letters, it's Dave Crane, because I've got a massive ego. That's why I put it there. But apart from that, you're going to ask the question, who's Dave Crane? Which is a very good question to ask. So I'm going to share that with you right now. This is Dave Crane.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've hosted over 1,000 events, and there's nothing more exciting or nerve-wracking than getting to introduce one of the best in the business. He's an award-winning international motivational speaker and coach. He's worked with celebrities like James Brown and Bruce Willis. And I'm Jack Canfield, and I'm Ryan Tracy. And I'm John Gray. I'm Jared Bobby. And I'm Perry Marshall. To audiences of over 1 billion people, he's sharing how to become unstoppable in business. It's my honor to introduce to you Dave Crane.
Again, massive ego. Now, the reason I had this video made is because often when you go on stage, somebody says, you're a ninja and you're Bob Marley, Dave Crane. And what I need to do with every audience, and sometimes I don't play this when I go on stage, it resets the room. So the room is now Dave-shaped, effectively. Because otherwise, you go out there and you spend your entire time trying to justify who you are and why you should be there. That's 40 seconds of showing I know what I'm talking about before I go out. So the audience is waiting and ready. Now, in your own organizations, or when you're dealing with the press, or you're talking to whatever it is, you might want to talk. If you're talking to your team, you might want to show a video of some description to place them before you start. So they're in the right mood. And you just take it off YouTube, put it at the beginning of your presentation, and it's very effective. If it's about the company, happy days. It could be about a rival company, and you could show it and say, this is what we need to do. It's a really powerful way of doing it. Okay, so the presentation today is how to become unstoppable. I'm going to take you from imposter syndrome up to industry icon. Now, the way that this agenda is going to work is I've got to check on timing. My phone is over here, so right when I'm walking across to all the time. I think that if I'm correct, we're going to be going for about 90 minutes or so, something like that, and then we're going to be having a breakout. Maybe I'll go a little bit less than that, so I can get you to do some exercises as well. And I've got about 2 hours to play, which is kind of cool. So I'm just checking on that. So by the end of it, you'll all be able to be industry icons, which is very cool, and I'll explain what that is a little later. Before we start, if you want to get your phones out and take a copy of this, it's a special free gift for you. This is 10 strategies to be able to get over imposter syndrome, to be able to grow your personal brand, to speak on stage, to do a ton of different things. It's a really powerful thing for you. That's a special gift.
Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
You're 15 minutes.
I know. That's working already.
We owe him already.
And is this working virtually?
How do you mean?
Because we do so much Zoom and Microsoft
Yes,
Teams,
absolutely.
whatever.
I'm doing events at the end of the month to it's actually in the same healthcare industry, and there's going to be about 300-400 people online. It's coming out of Kazakhstan. I'm going to be based in Dubai. In fact, I'm actually just going to record my presentation, send it through, and only go live on the Q&A in 15 minutes afterwards, and it works just as well on screen. In fact, I do a lot of lives on LinkedIn, and if you have that, you say to people, all you need to do... Is that me? There's a mini me in your phone. All you need to do is say to people, take a screenshot of it, and then just tap on the screenshot and it will open up the page for you. Or they can do it live when you're doing it. It's very, very powerful. Okay? And the reason I share it with you is because I want to give you a digital gift, but often you'll be working at a conference. And the organisers will never give you the contact details for the people in the room. You don't want everybody, you want the people who want to work with you. You give them a free digital gift, you then get their details if they want the digital gift, and then you can follow up with them afterwards. It's a really powerful way of getting that to work. Alright, anyway, let's move on. The agenda for today is to make you unstoppable, then to empower you, to create a brand new game and a brand new way of thinking, to overcome imposter syndrome in 3 steps, and I'll explain what that is in a moment, and make you a great storyteller and watch you then becoming unstoppable. That is today's plan. Now, when I get excited like today, I speak fast. I know that for some people you're thinking, oh, would you just slow it down? What does that word mean? And all the rest of it. So I'm recording today's session. I will give you a copy of that recording, but also if you're not sure what I'm talking about, ask me. If I'm going too fast, tell me. I'm here for you, 100%, because I know my stuff. But I also know that you don't know yet. So I want to help you get it. That's the plan. Okay, so with that, let's start with this. This is a slide from the World Economic Forum. If you want to take any pictures of any of these shots, by the way, feel free to do that. This slide here tells about the top 10 skills that the World Economic Forum reckons that everybody should have. And the massive shift that I find exciting about this particular thing is none of them have to do with any of the traditional management training or coding or any of those things. These are all soft skills. These are all things that people need to have that previously it was a bit of luck if you had it, but it's fine, you'll learn on the job. These are step on. And the thing that makes it so exciting is with the changes that are coming from artificial intelligence, and the latest things say that 80% of us will have to reskill with AI involved if we still want to stay relevant and have a job. The only ones that don't are gardeners and people in construction, but construction is already using AI. The gardeners don't have to yet. They're busy talking to plants, which is fine. But every one of us will have to start using it. So I just wanted to share this because the stuff I'm going to share with you today involves all these different elements here. Like anything, it's what you do with it that makes a huge difference. So we've got a special plan, it's a smart plan. I'm going to start it right now. So you can start making notes if you want to. I believe I have some books and they're on your, okay. You don't have to look through them, they're for an exercise later on. But I wanted you to have a crash course in storytelling that afterwards you can take away with you. Your average audience retains about 15% of what you say if they get involved in using it. Otherwise, we just watch it and it disappears. Unless you're really engaging the audience and maybe do something with it. Okay. So here about AI and sustainability. A lot of people worry about these different terms, especially in AI, but there are great opportunities if you are somebody that adopts it and jumps into it and does something with it straight away. For many other people, it's going to be there and they're going la 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 and they're trying to ignore it and I hope it goes away. How many people have been onto ChatGPT and made a decision that Google's better? Forget Google. Not people here. How many people have been on ChatGPT?
Tried several times. It's always busy.
So, yeah. And how many people have never been on ChatGPT? Interesting. Interesting. I would urge everybody to go in. What I did was straight away I paid for the paid for service. The reason it's so powerful is because it. Imagine, have you seen Iron Man? When Iron Man is got that voice in his helmet, the computer that talks. That's how AI should sit with you. It should be there as a co-pilot, like Mr. Spock in Star Trek. It doesn't do your job, but it assists you and makes you superpowered. Everybody should use it and start using it now because it's evolving at such a rate that it's going to be really hard to catch up with it. Okay, so the great opportunities to get stuck in sustainability is the same thing, but let's look at the very basics. Now, I want to teach you how to be great presenters. I want to teach you how to be great storytellers, but let me tell you first of all why it's so important that you get this worked out. Society values, does anybody know what society values most? Every society, since time began, in any nationality, any colour, any creed, any religion, anywhere in the world.
Security.
Not security.
Transparency.
Not transparency.
Belonging.
Belonging, yes, but no.
Empathy.
No?
Expertise.
Money.
What was that? Expertise?
Expertise.
Close, very close. That's part of it.
Getting rid of fear, something.
Sometimes, but sometimes it's engineered to be like that. I'll put you out of your misery. Status. Status is the most powerful thing that every society values and works with and respects. And it's very important to put this at the very beginning for this, because I'm going to show you how to really boost your status and your positioning, so instantly people will see who you are and what you do. I've been talking to you now for what? Probably about, let's just check, about 20 minutes or so, 16 minutes. And the first thing I did was position myself. So after that, I know for the next 2 hours or next 1 hour, 45 minutes, you are with me for that journey. It's very important to work on your status. Imposter syndrome hijacks that, and we're going to be working on that next. So status is built like this. This is a status game. There's 3 elements to it. First of all, society values your dominance in your industry. They value, I'll move out of the way in a minute because otherwise you'll have a finger all over your picture. It values your success in your chosen industry and the virtue you put into putting stuff together. Oh, you take the photo now, I won't go back in front of it. So, I've changed my mind now. Okay, so it values these things. Dominance, for instance, would be Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo in football. They're just the best footballers on the planet, possibly they've ever been. Success would be, financially at least, Elon Musk. You can't argue whether you like him or not, that he's the second richest person on the planet, or maybe he's a third, or it doesn't matter, it's pretty rich. And virtue is when somebody sticks to their guns and their principles and everything they tell you, they completely believe and buy into. So virtue would be somebody like a Pope, or Michelle Obama, or somebody like that who turns around and says, I'm sticking to my guns. That's really important. Now, how do we get to that level when we're never at that level? Well, this is how you do it. Be warm with people. When you're showing your dominance at something, be benevolent. Don't go, I'm great and you're not. Say, how can I help you? That means that status is grown because that's somebody you can approach. Then your expertise, when you talk about success, show people how good you are at doing your stuff by sharing insights that they wouldn't get from anywhere else. And they'll position you as an expert. And the last thing for virtue, be sincere. I'm happy to be wrong all the time. And I'm happy to tell you that anything I'm talking about with you right now, in 6 months' time, it might be completely different. But in 6 months' time, if it is different, I'll tell you what I believe then. But what I believe right now is completely. So when you get all these correct and in place, then you get positioned, or start to get positioned as somebody who's of note and a leader in your niche. And what I do is I train industry icons. So your personal brand is this. Your personal brand is what others say about you once you leave the room. That's your job, to make sure that when you're not there, people buzz about you and they know exactly who you are. That's online, that's in person, that's the stuff you create, that's the people you affect. And I know for many of you, you're working internally in the government, and you work in an organization where this kind of stuff is frowned upon, putting yourself forward and saying like that. That's not what we do. We're all in it together. I get that. But what happens is the minute that you reach outside, people examine you as a person and your organization. And even if I phone this hotel and it's quiet and a cleaner picks it up and goes, that's what I think the hotel does. Why? Because it's customer facing. So that's why it's important to raise your game when you're working internally and you staff our customers as much as the outside world. You have to be at that position. All right. So who are you? You don't have to answer that question straight away. I'm going to show you a few things that I'll help you understand who you are. The Lucky Life Lottery gives us an opportunity to be a certain person. But you don't have a choice as to how it works out. You don't know where you're going to be born. You don't know what race you're going to be. You don't have a choice about the affluence that you're born into, the family money. You don't know or choose your amount of connections, or your spiritual beliefs, or nationality, or your preference of gender, or physicality, or tradition, or even your existing influence on the world and the market. These are things that you can change, or many of you can change later. But when people say everyone's got an equal opportunity to do well, that's not true. It's not true. You have the best chance to be all you can be. It's not an unfair world, and it never will be. But what you can do is go, I don't care. I'm going to see how far I can get with this. So let's put that into perspective. Imposter syndrome. That's the idea that small people want to be big, but they're kind of scared because their entire life has taught them that they're never going to be that big. They're never going to be that good. And we've all had that. So if I ask a question to everybody in the room, how many people have at some point, or even now, be honest, suffered from imposter syndrome? Put your hands up. Okay? I know that 92% of the world does. So anybody who's going like that is either a massive narcissist, or in denial, or doesn't understand my accent. What did he say? Everybody has it, but it's actually really useful, and you can do stuff with it. It's very powerful. I'm going to show you how you can use it. Imposter syndrome is created because from a very early age, everything around you tells you that you shouldn't do stuff. By the time that you reach your teen years, you've been told thousands and thousands and thousands of times no. And eventually it starts to sink in. And you start believing that you're not as good. Now you guys have already got to a point, so when I say guys, I don't mean disrespecting ladies. Please forgive me for that. I'm just used to saying it. My favourite word on the planet is groovy. So that's, I'm just sharing that with you. So you have been through lots of experiences and you've risen above that, otherwise you wouldn't be in a position that you are, and you wouldn't be in this room. So give yourselves a round of applause for what you've done so far. And it's important to remember that, because as things change throughout your entire life, you need to be able to turn around sometimes and say, you know what, I'm doing all right. There's a post that was made by Emma Watson, who plays Hermione in Harry Potter. And I haven't got the picture here, but it's amazing. She said, she says, you shouldn't follow designer clothes and designer labels and wear them to feel important. If you have fed your family and kept them alive, then that's more important than what anybody else thinks. Really powerful. Anyway, it's magic, Harry Potter. So you've got to create yourself. If you haven't done it already, then this is a crash course on how to do it. There's 3 stages to creating yourself. First one is the name that you're given when you're born. Again, you've got no choice. Mine is David Maxwell Crane. And that's not going to be that funny, but thank you for laughing. Okay, David Maxwell Crane. That's that pillow with a head on it is me. That's my mom. And big head. And that's my dad. All right. So that was me. That's the name you gave me. And Maxwell apparently is a name that was passed down from my great grandfathers called Maxwell. And they all agreed, let's keep his name alive by passing it down through the sons. Thank you very much. Now, I only have one daughter, and she's got none of that in her name. So I'm very happy with that, and I don't think it's going to come again. So, you're born with this. Your birth certificate, you, is the version that you start off in the world with. And as life progresses, then you create a social media version of you, which might be that instead of David Maxwell Crane, I'm Dave Crane. That's my social media version of me. The one that I put out and show the public. The one that went on the radio, did TV, does all these big gigs. Dave Crane. Now you've got your own version of that, and you've engineered from the certificate version of you. Now I realized after the pandemic, because you probably guessed it, I work in entertainment, speaking, training speakers, and I was doing very well, traveling around the world, hosting Dubai Rugby Sevens for 20 years, winning awards for it every year, all that kind of stuff. And then a pandemic came, and my income disappeared with immediate effect for 2 years. And my wife was an award-winning wedding photographer, same thing. So I hustled, I bustled, I got through, kept the family, because Dubai's not cheap. I kept it all going, rent. How many people are based in Dubai, by the way? How many people are sympathizing with me? Everyone knows you go, you deserve it. Because the streets are made of gold, you can pick it up and sell it to the bank. So what we had to do was reinvent and work really hard on it. And I didn't realize how hard it was for me in particular. It's hard for many people, and I will touch on that a little bit later. But I decided that what I would do is keep my head in the game and just make sure that that the family are fine. And that was a sacrificing decision I was going to make. And I did it. And I got through, and I would eat M&Ms or drink Coke or eat pizza. I didn't care what I physically looked like, as long as I was busy and working and making sure we could still pay bills and school fees and everything else. We got through that, and the pandemic changed, and people were getting vaccinated, and everyone was coming out of it. And the amazing thing is, I don't know how it was for you or for your clients, but if you weren't really affected the way that we were affected during the pandemic, it's like, yeah, what are you going on about? It was a bit inconvenient. I worked from home, took a cut in wages, but it's okay. And I get that. But it's amazing how many people lost their empathy within 3 months of the pandemic. At first everyone's like, oh, look after your neighbours. And it's like, I'm fine, I'm good, don't worry about it, I'll go to work. In fact, we're doing well. We've got a tech company making more money. Bingo, fantastic. So my social media version of me, that's my wife Aziza, my daughter Maya, and that's me with snow on my head. It's not dandruff, I promise. That version of me wasn't strong enough to come out of a pandemic and hit the ground running. Because I was suffering, and to a degree I still do, from how many people have heard of burnout? There's a thing called burn on. And burn on is just you hit the ground running, and you still keep running, and your wheels are spinning in sand, and they don't catch anything. And you keep going because you're used to doing it for 2 years. And I realized that I was worn out. I was exhausted, but I couldn't switch off because I had some kind of a momentum, and I had to deal with that. So then I invented my third version of me. I'm a life coach, I'm a business coach, I'm a mentor. I thought, Dave, ask yourself a better question. And what I realized is what I do when I'm at my very best is I'm working with a live audience. I know you won't believe it, but I'm a massive introvert. I really don't like to talk unless I'm talking. And if I'm out with a group of people, I'm more than happy to sit back and observe. Why? Because if it's my turn to speak, I want to run the room. That's not right dynamic for being in a group of people where everyone's contributing. So I'm just very quiet that way. So I realized that what I do really well, the best version of me, is me with a microphone and an audience, because I make snap decisions. I guarantee that things happen, and I make sure the sponsors are happy, I make sure the audience are happy, and I get things to be exactly as it says on the tin. So that was my superhero version of me. And so I decided to give him a name. Max. At some point, Maxwell was going to be useful for me. So I decided that version of me that stands in the middle of the stage, or stands does hypnosis shows, or whatever it is that I do, I'm going to hand the running of my life to him. And when I've got a difficult question that I don't know how to deal with because I'm still a bit bruised, I'm going to ask Matt, what do you think? So therefore, if a client said they're going to work with me, but then they delay coming back to me, I ask myself, Matt, what do you think should happen? And Matt would say something, and the deal was whatever he said I had to do. Because otherwise I'd just kill Max and it wouldn't come up. I mean, it sounds, I'm crazy, I'm not. Does it make sense to you what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd say to Max, what should I do with these people? And Max said, right, give them 48 hours, and if they don't come through in 48 hours, bin them. I'm thinking, you can't do that, we need money. I'm thinking, okay, I'll go with that, and the truth is that some came back within 48 hours, and other ones just delayed, I stopped calling them. So for that's okay. So then I started giving more and more to Max, until to the point where now the only time I'm not Max is when I'm at home, and everyone else is my boss. My wife, my daughter, my dogs, my mom, they tell me what to do, and my response as the man of the house is, okay. It's just easier. But the rest of the time, Max is in charge, and the great thing is, I mean, just take a few moments, right? If you want to find your superhero version of you, all you need to do is think of when you are at your very best. Is it when you're making decisions? Is it when you're on your laptop? Is it when you're, in fact, do an exercise, take a few moments because it's really important. When do you go into your zone? Is it when you're doing sports, going to the gym? Is it when you've got your clients or your staff in front of you and you're brainstorming something? Is it when you're selling to a customer or a client? Or is it when you're relaxing and working out how to move forward with a vision? That version is your best version. If you haven't got a name for it, give it a nickname. Your nickname from school or something like that, but you can tap into it and you can use it because that allows you then to step up your game, and you use that against imposter syndrome to be able to make decisions when you don't feel comfortable. Let that version of you do it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Really powerful. Does it powerful? Do you think it's powerful? A couple of people nodding, a couple of people.
I don't know what he means.
Fine. Watch the video. It's all there. All right. So think about it. Reimagine yourself.
The difficulty is to know this, right? What is the best version of you? Because you could always kind of say, well, I'm not sure. Is this really the version? And
It's a case of taste
there
testing.
is kind of peer pressure, society, and you should be this image versus is this my best? And it's not necessarily that easy.
Absolutely. None of this stuff is easy, but when you do work out what it is, it's very powerful. And I would always say test different ones, split test and see what works for you. It might be that there's a version of you that's too loud and the version of you that takes a step back, and that version you feel comfortable, let that version do it. There'll be different versions because we wear different hats for different audiences and so on. Just find what works for you and gets you moving forward faster. That's all you need to do. And nobody else knows. I mean, you guys know about Max because I told you about Max. But otherwise, people don't go, oh, Max, where's Dave gone? No, nobody knows. All right, so James Bond is that. James Bond for a new era, they create a brand new character to take over and be that super spy for the audience at that given time. And Daniel Craig is not doing it anymore. It could be a number of different people that they're going to choose. You can do that for you as well. All right. So what makes a truly great leader? I'm going to throw this to you as a question because I've got my own idea, but so you guys are working on it, and I saw you give me your credo. So what makes a great leader?
Vision.
Yeah, go on.
Empathy.
Transparency.
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Followers.
Inspiration.
Care.
Followers. Yeah.
Care.
Caring.
Caring. Great answers. In fact, I was in a presentation earlier this week with Stephen M.R. Covey's son, and he was talking about the importance of losing the command and conquer style of leadership and moving to a trust and inspire version where all the things you said are very important. I agree with you, they're great answers, but I think it's more simple. I think it's always asking better questions of yourself and your audience to work out what it is you need to do. And I think then, after that, you always give better answers because you know they're informed. And in order to do that, you have to have effective communication, internally as well as externally. Because if you're in a silo and you're working on your own, then you can't get people to want to work with you. And the thing is, one thing that I thought most people aren't addressing is that there's a ton of people who will never go into the office ever again. There's a ton of people who have a side hustle business who still do business, but they're just basically working on the weekend or on a night time. And there's a ton of people who will leave their job because they've lost their job, will start a little business and will say, I'm never doing that, but they will be a valuable part of the economy. Those people need to have that communication with you. And most people don't address it like that. They say it's a big corporate and it's full of people, and that was the old way of doing it. But 80% of any country is small businesses. And now they have more power as digital nomads work from a coffee shop, working from home than ever before. So your effective communication is so important. So let's have a little go at this. Before we get into storytelling, let me just show you what happens with silent storytelling. I'll stand here.
Six. Clockwise. How?
Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, which
So this proves the point that even without speech in different languages and so on, you can still be incredibly effective. What you say, what you do, and how you are as a person with your brand carries weight. So you're always on unless you decide not to be on at all. So now let's talk about your customers, your clients, your employees, your bosses, and whoever it is that you answer to. For me, I answer to everybody. But I also have a position where I will make sure that I look after myself and my mental state too. That's born out of the pandemic. And I do sack clients, and I do turn down money, because if anybody doesn't respect me, and it starts taking me back to where I was before, I'll let it go. I'll tell you right now, that about a month ago, I turned down a Netflix TV show I've been working on for about a year, because the woman who was running it turned around and started shouting in text at me. So I sent her a direct message, said, please don't talk to me like that in front of the group. To which she then sent me a big rant and said, in that case you can go. The show was about me. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, I was a bit upset at first, as you can imagine, it's worth a lot of money. So I thought, okay, that's fine, but I won't let anybody talk to me like that, so I'm still going to stick to my guns. I talked to my wife about it after about 2 days of being upset. And I said, well, you know, I've lost this money, I've lost this show. And she said to me and your daughter don't care. Maya and I don't care what show you're on, if you're on a show at all. Your dad, just be that. We'll make the money back from somewhere else. As long as you're happy, that's fine. And it was a massive cloud that lifted off me. So what I did is I sent a letter of apology to the lady, she didn't deserve it, just to say, I respect you, I think the project would be great. If you want to talk, I'll talk, if not, then leave it. I didn't get a reply back. Now the reason I sent it was in 10 years' time, or even now, having a conversation with you, you can't say to me, why didn't you contact her? Ego-wise. I've sent it and I didn't expect a reply back. I've not got it. But she's got a fire in my belly. I will get my Netflix show my way. And I will gather stuff my way. I'm really excited that she did that. A massive gift. So now let's talk about your customers. Who's your target avatar? Now each of you have got different targets. You've got staff, you've got internal stuff, you've got one you've got to reach the press, you've got a head office, you've got all sorts of different target audiences. But you can have a number of different avatars. And it's all about asking those questions. What's in it for them? Nobody cares who I am. You guys don't care who I am. You don't care who I've worked with, any of that stuff. It's only about what I can do for you that matters. Bear that in mind with everybody you deal with as well. With my wife, my gorgeous wife Aziza, who's a genius and does all my online stuff, and all that other stuff, I realized that if I want to stay in this happy relationship, I should only concentrate on keeping her happy. Happy wife, happy life. Now, does that mean that I've given up? No, but here's the thing about it. if I concentrate in every relationship, not just my wife, but my daughter and my dogs and everybody, to give people what they want, then that means that they're happy and the relationship continues. If I give them what I want, then there's a conflict. And if I work it out so what I deliver is also what I want at the same time, happy days. So it's always important to listen to your customers and find out what they want to get the effect. So what's in it for them is a massive question. Okay, let's go through very quickly. What's in it for your customers? Let's just pretend you're an organization that works with patients. Oh, you do. Right. So, here's what they think. I've got a headache. Who can fix it? Are they the best fit for me? If they are, will my headache be fixed? And then we'll think about it. Can I get it cheaper? If they can't get it cheaper, they'll stay with you. If they can get it cheaper, they will go. But if they can get it at the right rate for you with the job that you do, they will pay for you to be there. And it's not about being the cheapest in the market. It's about understanding how all these things come together and being the best choice. Do you know what the formula is for being paid? Why you get paid what you get paid, I get paid what I do, the waiter, everybody else. Anybody want to tell me the formula of how we earn? Take your time.
Salary scale.
Salary scale? That's close, but it's not everything.
Let's say the added value we can deliver compared with somebody else.
That's very good. That's very close.
Cost of not having that person.
That's true as well. There's actually a formula. The formula is this: two things. The effect of the job that you do for people and how cheaply you can be replaced by somebody else. That's it. That's the formula for why I get paid, what I get paid, you get paid, blah, blah, blah. So your job is to build up your value, build up what you're worth, and that's why you stay where you are and you build up bigger because of the value that you give to other people. So, why should advertisers want to work with you? It's a big question. Most people don't address it properly, but there are a couple of things. If you can tell really epic and persuasive stories about who you are, what you do, that resonate with them, then it works really well. Why telling stories? Why not just do what everyone else does? Give you facts and figures, because it's boring. And also because if you look under a CAT scan, when you put, don't stick needles in your brain, but needles have been stuck in brains, not mine, because my hair's too good. But if you look at what happens, when you tell people facts and figures, then about 2 parts of the brain light up. When you tell them a really engaging story, about 7 parts of the brain light up. That's why we all remember the fairy tales we were told as children. Because they made us excited, they made us sad, they made us angry, and we remember it. So if you can tell a story about a client, it makes a massive difference. I'm going to teach you how Hollywood does it. I'm going to teach you how to do it yourself, and give you some exercises on how to do it yourself before you finish the day. Is this useful for you?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Sorry, I've got a question. How do you story tell someone who's a bottom liner? Yeah. Someone who just wants to get straight into it.
I'll show you exactly how you do that. I was wondering when you said somebody who's a bottom liner, I thought I'd missed out the term. I get it right. I know most of them, but that one. If they're a bottom liner, if they are only into facts and figures, as many of our clients and people are, then you have to include that as part of the story, but the story still stands as it is. So they need to see the facts, they need to see the figures, because that's what they're kind of obsessed with. But the story should still carry it, because they need to be able to tell other people, and they need to be convinced. If all we're going to do is look at the numbers and so on, sometimes you're having a difficulty with that person anyway. Remember, what I said to you about the challenge of what makes you, why do you get paid what you get paid, the value of what you put in, and how cheaply you can be replaced. But bottom line, people only look at how cheaply you can be replaced. But if the value is you bring lots of skills to the table, including storytelling, which is like a martial art in business, then it's really hard to get rid of you. And also, if you're doing it properly, there's other people around who value you too. Does that answer the question?
It does.
Okay, good, because I'm making it up as I go along. Okay. So I'm going to show you now Hollywood's best kept secret. And when you hear this, you're going to go, no, really? I'm going, yes, it's true. We won't say that because I've told you what to say, and you'll never say it now. But you're thinking. All right, so Hollywood's best kept secret when they're making movies is this. Okay. I'm going to tell you a story now, and I want you to tell me which movie it reminds you of. So you've got a hero or a heroine, and they're living in an ordinary world, but they've got extraordinary skills. But they're also kind of geeky and nerdy at the same time, but they do one or two things really well. Then something happens, a call to adventure. It could be that aliens have landed on the planet. It could be that they're going to go play football, but they know that they're not very good at doing certain things, and they're talented, but they've missed out on something before. It could be that they want to go to the prom with a girl, and she's not interested in them, but they really want to meet that girl. It could be that they're going off to war. It could be a number of different things. So there's a call to adventure, and they refuse to do it. The refusal could be they mess up. They miss a penalty, and they're never going to take a penalty again. It could be that the aliens arrive and they go with their friend, and the aliens shoot their friend. Or it could be that the girl laughs at them, and they say, right, I'm not having this, I'm never going to do it again. Then a mentor comes along. The mentor says, I've done it, I can help you. And they refuse to come and play. Not interested, don't want to do it. But eventually, they go with the mentor. The mentor then crosses over to a threshold, to a different world. Takes them on a journey to a different world, which is a special world here that they've never been in before, and there they get tested. They make friends, they make allies, they make enemies, they mess up, they do everything, and then they go into a deeper level of where they are. So initially it's a roller coaster journey during this bit here, and they go for a really difficult ordeal, and it might be that the ordeal is the original problem that we're trying to fix there. It's prom night, you haven't got the girl. The aliens are at your house. You've got a penalty with the last kick of the game. What are you going to do? And then something goes wrong. The reward of seizing the sword, they go to grab it, they've got it, they go in, start working on the thing, and they die. Or somebody dies. Somebody important. And you're thinking, how are we going to survive this? But then they dig deep and they come back. There's a resurrection. And they get the thing, and everyone claps, and the audience is happy. And then they decide whether they're going to bring the elixir or the product or their expertise and go back to where they begin, or go off into the sunset and have more adventures. Does this make sense? Is any story that comes to mind? Shout out.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, great. What else?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, good. We're all Marvel fans. I'm not seeing Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't tell me.
Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman. I'm going to share with you a secret. 99% of Hollywood movies use this plot. It's called the hero's journey. Which character are you? When you think about it, which character are you? The hero's journey, which character are you? I just explained.
The hero.
And which phase?
Sure. So you're the hero, yeah? Right. Prepare to be shocked. Think about it. You're the mentor. The reason that you're the mentor is we spend our lives wanting to be the hero. But you as an organization are the mentor who's there to save the heroes. Your clients are the heroes. You as a boss are not the star in your company, you are now the mentor. Why is that important? Because there's less pressure. But also, you are kind of a hero, but only in your world. Your job is to give to other people, grow other people, and as they grow, they lift you up. So this was a tough one for me. I was one of the best speakers, entertainers, blah, 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 internationally. And my wife said to me, why don't you just coach people and mentor people? And I was like, no, I want to be there on stage. She said, yeah, but things change. Why don't you just set something up instead? And the moment I did that, and the moment I accepted it and got over my own ego, the world altered for me. So have you think about it. You as an organization, be the mentor. Your client is the hero. And when your client is a hero, everything changes for them. Now, when you meet a hero, or when you start talking about a hero, the reason that it works so well in the movies is the hero has a core wound. The core wound is something that everyone identifies with that makes them a bit more human. If you get somebody, for instance, if I was to tell you a story about a guy who is a millionaire, he inherits his millions of dollars and he gets given some money and becomes a billionaire, well done. But if I tell you a story about somebody who started from nothing, worked his way up and became a millionaire, that's a story you want to know. Because you want to know how they did it, how did they feel, what was the experience? Well, the core wound is very important. These people all have core wounds. They've all got massive imposter syndrome, and we talk about it. If you ever see a writer's table where they stand around, you can get it onto, or sit around, it's on YouTube, and we get all these different stars. They all tell you, like Samuel L. Jackson, who's probably the most successful movie star of all time, because his movies have made more money than any other movie star, talked about how happy he was to get the contract with Marvel, because you never know when you're going to get another gig again. Samuel L. Jackson. So everybody's got their own version of it. For me, my own one is very simple. That was me. Came with imposter syndrome when I was, I don't know, I showed this to my daughter today in the car. And I said, how old do you think I was there? She said, I don't know, probably about 16, 17. I was probably about 13, 14 at the time. But here's the thing. And some people in this room will identify with it, some people won't, but that's fine as well. I grew up, my parents were mixed. My father's white, my mom's black. And I grew up in white towns in Scotland first, and then in the UK, in England. We moved to England. And I spent my entire life trying to be recognised, trying to get the same opportunities as other people would have, and finding that I had to work twice as hard, and most of the time I didn't get that opportunity. That will resonate with a lot of people in this room. And I still work twice as hard to get the gigs that I get. And being twice as good as everybody doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get that. I won't dwell on that, but I want you to see my core wound. And I realize that my entire life has been about disproving that and making sure that I move forward with it. Now you can have your own core wound, and there's nothing wrong with putting it front and center. Why is it important to have that? Because even when you've got a TV show like The Sopranos, anybody ever watched The Sopranos? All right, Tony Soprano, what was his core wound? Anybody remember? Right back to the first few episodes.
Anxiety.
Caused by his mum. His mum was a nutter. She slapped him around, did all sorts of horrible stuff to him when he was a kid. And he still tried to help her when he was older. And so when you watch it from the very beginning, you realize that even though he's running prostitution, guns and murdering people and all that, every episode is, how will his core wound be fixed? Or worse? Will it get worse because of what he does in that episode? If you have that, you need to have it. So let's go through this very quickly. I won't spend too long on it. These are 6 different movies: Harry Potter, Star Wars, Matrix, Spider-Man, Lion King, Lord of the Rings. All of them have the same plot. Every single one. Whether it's being in an ordinary world, Harry Potter's in the cupboard, that's not very ordinary, I agree. Luke Skywalker lives on a moisture farm in Tatooine. Thomas Anderson, the computer guy in Matrix, played by Keanu Reeves. Peter Parker's a nerdy student being bullied by his classmates. Simba is the heir to the throne, and Frodo lives in a hole in the ground. Now, I won't go through this whole thing, but all the stuff I showed you is exactly, if I take something at random, right, let's say going back into battle on the Harry Potter movie. Here we go, Harry, Ron and Hermione plan to get Philosopher's Stone before Snape gets to it. In Star Wars, the Death Star destroys Alderaan, they invade the Death Star and try to save Princess Leia. Each of them has the same plot points at every single point in the movie. Everything, the hero steps up, the enemy defeated, the resurrection. Let's take it, Harry Potter wakes up in a hospital. Dumbledore says he's protected by his mother's love. Luke remembers Obi-Wan's advice. Luke, do you remember, anyone a Star Wars fan? A couple of people see Star Wars, everyone else goes, nerd, nerd, nerd. Fine, right. There's a bit of Star Wars where he's flying his ship and he has to use the Force to oh, forget it. If you haven't watched it after 30 years, it's not going to change your mind now. Okay, but the point is, the same movies have the same stuff. Now here's something I want you to know. I'll go through this quickly because it's in your notes. When you write a story, and you think about a story to share with people, the reason I wanted to give you this, you don't need to use this, but now you know how the biggest stories on the planet work. When you start telling stories to your clients, to your staff, to anybody, you'll know the framework of what works. Don't mess with it. Keep it, because you know it works. So, starts off, and I break it down into 8 pieces instead of the 12 that we've got there. And you should have a copy of this anyway, but I'll let you see a slide with all of it on and take a photo of it. So you set the scene. Once upon a time, this is a scenario. Next thing is you introduce a hero. What's their core wound? These are your clients. These are your patients. These are the organizations that come to work with you. This is a boardroom full of people, and you say, right, let me give you an example about why we do a really good job of this. We had a client who was really good, but they had this challenge. That's a core wound, okay? Then you set up the challenge. What's their fear? What is it that they're worried about? What is it you had to fix? And then you be the mentor. So what we did as a team, as an organization, as a company, is we started talking to them about fixing it, blah, 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 blah. Then the next thing you do is you tell the story about what happened next. Now, can you imagine as you tell them this, whoever it is you're in front of, even the bottom liners, they'll go with this story, because they're going, okay, so what happened next? And if it's a real story, which I would advise you to use, but you can still tell it in the way you want to tell it, then you've got everyone transfixed to find out what happens next. Why? Because we're programmed from very small to do it. When I taught you at the very beginning of today about the good morning, everybody, good morning, that only worked because when you were at school, the teacher would do the same thing. You all coded in whatever country you were from to do that. So you tell the story about what happened next, you add the crisis about what went wrong. So therefore, that we gave them the treatment, but then they ran out of money. So what we did was we decided to help them, or we got the treatment wasn't working, so we had a new experimental thing which we wanted to help them with, blah, 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 blah. And then you raise the game. So you managed to fix it. And then they lived happily ever after. Now if you're writing this down, let me give you a full screen of this. There you go. Because I know otherwise your heads will explode and it's not fair. So if you want to take a picture of that, I'll move to one side. There you go. But I also spent a lot of time making those notebooks for you with everything on it as well, so don't worry about it, you haven't got it. Okay? Is this useful for you so far?
Yeah.
Is this useful for you so far?
Yes.
See, it works totally. And here's the thing that's really crazy about it. I've got a room full of very senior people from Johnson & Johnson that I'm sharing this with. Now, at no point are you thinking, Dave, you're treating us like children. You're into it and you're getting it. Because I get a lot of people turn around and I show them how to do this stuff, and they say, yeah, but they won't respond because they're too senior. People love it when you're engaging them. Your job with any audience is to find the Wi-Fi code of them. That's why I'm so good at doing what I do. Because the Wi-Fi code that I find in an audience instantly by looking at them, it works with 50,000 people at a rugby event where we're all drunk and we're all crazy, and if you get it wrong, they throw cans of beer at you, just like in that movie 300 with the arrows coming over. But if you get it right, they love it and they work with you. And that comes from my core wound of wanting to fit in. That's how I learned to be so good at it. But you can still find that by reading your audience, looking at the demographics and thinking, what's in it for them? Okay, has everyone got a copy of this now? Okay, all right, so messaging your clients, here's another thing about the martial art of being able to do it. This is so powerful, and it's going to teach you how to be able to do your elevator pitch. And I want you to think about this in two terms. I want you to think about who you are, who they are, but think about it for every different client, because this is really powerful to be able to tell this story in a Hollywood style. So, you got the now versus the future, right? The now versus the future. This is called creating a messaging map. So, don't do this now. You're going to do it in a few moments' time. It's going to be your exercise. You work out and you write down the problems that your avatar is facing now. So what is their big problem? Customer, client, organization, what's their headache? How are they facing it now? And so with that, what are their challenges? You write it all down. Everything, emotionally, go through all the different steps. In fact, to go through the steps, there's a number of things you can do. Now, I don't think I've included this in your notes, so you might want to take a copy of this. You ask the questions, how do they feel? What are their problems? What else gets affected by the way they're feeling? What's affected? Who's affected? The family, friends, clients, staff? Then what's their desperation? How does that drive it? Why are they so worried about it? And what happens if they can't fix things? And the final bit, is there anyone else that you've missed about the tough challenges that they're facing? These are questions you must ask to get the now of how they are at this moment in time. Because you are going to supply a remedy for them, and you're going to put that into your messaging and into your story. So you've got that. Everyone got a picture of that? Yeah? Okay, so next, then I want you to do is to write down, when you fix their headache and their problem and their challenge, what does their future now look like, as in the future? So that future, I mean, it might be that they're sitting on the beach, really happy, and everything's chilled out, and everything's fantastic, but then you've got to ask these questions. So how do they feel now? And what are their solutions that you gave them? What else has improved? What's been affected across their family, friends, and so on? What's their daily happiness like? How's feeling the certainty of success matter to them? And lastly, what else has been improved and enhanced from that experience? Make sure you've got a picture of this, because these are the questions you have to ask before you start crafting your messages to the market. And it sounds like I'm giving you a lot. It is. I fully expect your head to explode after I finish talking. That's standard. That's why I've got the video for you, so you can unexplode afterwards. All right. So with that, you combine both of them for your message. So you've got them now, you've got them in the future, and you put the two together. So let me illustrate why that matters. And you also have a roadmap strategy. The roadmap strategy, I'm going to throw at you. I'm going to give you an example of this. So when I do my industry icon thing, where I train people, I mentor decision makers to become very effective in their communication, so then they get seen as the best in their niche. And then they can earn from that and find more success. That's what I do. So when I've got my roadmap, that's taking people from where they start off all the way to the very beginning. It's normally about 4 to 7 steps. And if you haven't got one, design one. In my case, they start off with an awareness. I don't know what's wrong, but somehow I just feel I could be better in my job. I've worked really hard, I've got a good business, but I'm invisible. And I want to be a bit more like Elon Musk or Simon Sinek or like Oprah Winfrey or whatever it is they decide that they want to be like. Then we start them driving on a journey, creating social media content and growing who they are and putting it out into the market. And then as they start doing that, we realize that the positioning is wrong. They're driving their car, but not necessarily in the right direction towards the clients that they really want to hit. And then we refine what they're taking in the car. You don't need that, you don't need that. You just need to get that message and people love it. And then you can own your industry. That's what I do with my industry icon. For your version, think about who your clients were. What our clients are. What's their journey? How do they start off? What are their aspirations? What is the final point that you take them to? Because your story needs to be that. So then you turn it into an elevator pitch as well, because that's all you need to say to people. Now let me illustrate what that means. So I've taken a sample of a healthcare provider talking to a board of governors. I think that might kind of resonate with a couple of people here. And by the way, I won't go through all this, but there's a now and a future version of them. And you're thinking, Dave, you really worked hard on this. Yes, ChatGPT really did work hard on this. And if you're wondering how to use it, that's how you use it. Okay. Can I ask something? Can you get Iggy to move slightly that way? Because the camera's probably going to have a lot of back of your head. Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so here we go. This hopefully will resonate. It doesn't matter at this moment if it doesn't. It's a point I want to make to you. That's a now versus. So supposing you're learning, or I'm teaching you storytelling to be able to then do stuff with the board of governors, your elevator pitch would look like this. We will transform you from anxious investors to confident stakeholders, narrating our future vision and proactive strategies, assuring a brilliant future for your investment. Does that make sense? I hope it does, because I don't know what it means. ChatGPT. So once you've got that and you work through this, you can do this for everybody, everyone, your clients, you can do it for your colleagues, you can do it for your family if you need to. If you have to do the elevator pitch to your family, you should really have a real think about your relationship with people in it. Even though I do have members of the family that still need to hear it. So for you as an exercise for an organisation, here's what I really recommend you do. Once you leave here, go back to your office with all the skills and the stuff I've shown you today and ask what are the 100 most horrible questions that people ask us. Lots of people, it could be board of governors, it could be staff, it could be everybody. And once you've got those, write them all down, 100 horrible questions. And then work out a suitable case study that fits that question. So somebody says to you, what if your stuff doesn't work and the patient gets worse? Right, there's a case study where my stuff didn't work and the patient got worse, but we worked with the doctors to come up with another solution to be able to fix it. I'm making it up as I go along. But you get the general idea, because then you weave that into a story. And once you've weaved it into a story, then all you do is tailor it for each different avatar. So it's something you show to the board of governors. The same story would probably work for a customer or a client. Same story would probably work for a supplier or a pharmacist or whoever it is that you want to work with. And then you just index it and rinse and repeat it. So you've got 100 stories that you can choose for any particular point. Keep them on an Excel sheet or whatever you need to do, and you just tell that story to fix the headache and the problem, the people that don't believe you. And the people you want to enhance a relationship with, you tell them an appropriate story at that given time that makes them feel like they are the hero, you are the mentor, and you take them on a journey to the promised land. Does that make sense? Is anybody really scared because I've told you a lot of stuff in a short amount of time and your head's kind of ready to explode? Good. Because you're going to get the video. And part of it is part of your beautiful head, but the rest of it is a bit like that. Okay, so with that, let me share with you my story, and then I'm going to get you to do some exercises. So my story, I'm going to keep it as brief as possible. I've told you a lot about it already. My story is this. As you've already worked out, there's a core wound involved. My entire story has been fighting that, with the pandemic and other elements as well. If I was to summarize in a book, have you ever been so lost that you stopped believing in yourself? How many people have ever felt like that? Be honest. Yeah, because I'm sharing this with you. If at the end of this story you turn around and say, only you, Dave, nobody else ever felt like that, I would be so upset. I would just walk out because I've been paid already, so I don't care. No. All right. So my phrase on life is jump and grow wings on the way down. This is my signature phrase. What I show people how to do, I teach them to jump and grow wings on the way down. Because that's what I've done in my entire career. When I've been faced with something that's difficult, I didn't know how to do it, I make a calculated risk and I jump and grow wings on the way down. I didn't know how my relationship with you guys was going to work, but you know what? If you don't go for it, you never find out. You jump and grow wings on the way down. When you first start talking to people, and you're thinking, was this story going to work? Got to be in it to win it. Go for it. You know your story, you've had it in your head, you can adapt it to the person in front, but if you don't take action, you'll never find out. Jump and grow wings on the way down. So with that story, I've always spent my life being an imposter. This is me about the age of 12, I think it is, 11, 12, as you can see, going to Hogwarts school. And I wanted to be famous. I remember when I talked to my teacher and said, in the days when you had a careers officer, I don't know if anybody else here is as old as me, but I had to sit there in somebody's office, Dave, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, I want to be famous, I want to be on TV, and I want to be on the radio. And they looked for a book, because there's no internet in those days. In fact, it was barely light. It was all like a cave, nothing. So she looked through and she said, well, that's not in the book, choose something else. Seriously. So in the end, I just wanted to get away, and I wanted to go to university and just drink heavily and make new friends. So I said, I want to be a lawyer. And she went, that's great, look through, that's what you're going to do, fantastic. These are the A levels you take. And I told my parents I want to be a lawyer. And they said, fantastic. And I went away, and I was the worst lawyer on the planet. I lasted 2 years of my 3-year law degree, dropped out, and hated it, and felt really, really like an imposter, even worse, because I shouldn't have been there. But later on, I went back as a BBC journalist and got what I wanted. But here's the thing. I went from that Harry Potter to running huge events, going up. These are all my wives. It's not really, they're cheerleaders. They don't know who I am, and I look really old. Okay, so this is me in front of Rugby Sevens doing all the stuff I do. In fact, to be honest with you, this is one of my crowning glories. Meeting James Brown, working with James Brown, amongst many other people that I've had in my career. I'm not saying this to go, look at me, I'm great, but I'm saying this because now you know the core wound. You can imagine at every step what I was going through to get to that stage. Why did I get James Brown to interview? I'll be honest with you, they gave me James Brown because I was the only brown person in the radio station at the time. Nobody was interested. I'm like, what, you don't want to interview? No, not about James Brown. In fact, one of my colleagues, I gave him my camera, I'm going to give the camera back to me after I'd done the interview. All the pictures were smudged. So he must have deliberately done something to hijack it. Then a friend of mine from the Gulf News newspaper said, I've got a picture of you, do you want it? And that was it. Amazing, otherwise there'd be no proof about it. This is me. prove I'm not making it up. So that was me. I became unstoppable. There was very few things that would ever make me not move forward. And I'm saying from points of humility. I don't mean that I've got a massive ego, which hopefully you've seen that. I'm all for you. But at the same time, I wouldn't let things hold me back. And often the people who said I wasn't as good as I think I am would then turn around and say, well, we always knew you were really good at it, and we knew you'd do really well. Much later, I'm sure you've had the same kind of experience. So that, I've made enough money to look after my wife, my kid, my dogs, live in Dubai, and I wasn't bothered, never been motivated by money, believe it or not. And then the pandemic came along. I lost everything. With immediate effect, shut down. So me going onto my computer at home meant nothing, because there's no clients, there's no gigs, there's nothing. And it was difficult. I've already told you this story anyway. I told you the fact that I had to reinvent. I went on and did about 200 live shows on LinkedIn. I turned my laptop into a green room studio. So it looks like I'm doing a CNN show. If you've ever seen any of my stuff on LinkedIn, you'll see exactly the quality of the stuff I produce. And I had to just keep going to make it work. And eventually, something came along that made it better. So 2 years until I left my family. They're the ones that kept me alive, because I had to keep them alive. I couldn't sit there and do nothing. I couldn't lick my own wounds. I couldn't say, well, not to worry, because if I stop moving, then they drop. And this was probably true for many of the people in the room, if not all of you. You're not just a person, you're a table. And that table has your family members on it. And if that table collapses, so do they. Does that resonate with anybody here? Yeah. That's me. Now my wife's got her own business, we've grown that together, but at the time that was me. So at the end of the pandemic, kind of at the end of the pandemic, I was offered a job. Dave, we've got the World Cup cricket, T20, coming to Dubai. Would you like to be part of that team? In fact, even more than that, some friend mentioned it to me, so I had to apply for the job of being the host. Now, World Cup cricket's got like 200 million people watching, massive. Any cricket fans in the room? Okay? Yeah. I know nothing about cricket, I do now. I didn't like it, otherwise I'd know more about cricket. But I needed to have a big gig. I needed to have something established after 2 years. I'm still alive, and I do these big gigs. So I threw myself in at the deep end and said, look, I'm open, just teach me how to do it, tell me what to say, and I'll do it. So I threw myself in at the deep end, and I just want to say at this point, I found it really uncomfortable, and I hated most of it. I still don't like cricket, I understand it now. But I'm a world-class commentator at cricket. Doesn't mean you've got to love it. Hey. So there's me in Abu Dhabi, big cricket events, international, I can't remember who's playing. The point was, this is my very first gig. So the first gig I went out and I had people shouting at me, Dave say this, Dave say that, and I took it all on board and learned because I wanted to be brilliant. I had about 8 or 9 matches that I had to get through into the finals. And then, that would be great. This is what it looks like. I'm faking loving it, but anyways, it was a great gig, and I learned a lot from it, and I love difficult stuff, because it lets me know that I'm better at doing it than I was before I started off. So the first night I did my first event, I've got another one in 2 days. I'm kind of getting a hang of it, but it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, but there you go. But that was on that night. Next, in fact, it was the night before. 4:30, October 21st, and the phone rang. So the phone rings. And my wife says, is that the house phone? I'm like, yeah, I guess. So I got up in my pajamas, wandering through the house as you do, stepping over dogs, picking up the phone. Hello, who's calling me at this time in the morning? That Dave Crane? Yes, it is. This is St. Mary's Hospital in Leeds in the UK. Your dad's got COVID. He's gonna die. We can't save him. Can you ring your family and friends and get them to go and see him? I asked the questions, is there anything you can do? He said, there's nothing we can do. He's got challenges anyway, and the oxygen we've got at the maximum level, it's not going down. So I then rang around my family in the UK. I said, you've got to go to a hospital. Dad's not well. It's 1:30 in the morning. Dad's going to die. Get yourself down there. My sister, who doesn't talk to me, to call her, make sure she's okay to get there. And we got there, and as they're heading towards the hospital, I managed to get a nurse who had Zoom on her phone. So me and my family are in my home studio, saying goodbye to Dad. After that, we got about an hour. And my dad was off his face on morphine, so he didn't really care. He knew he was going. He was telling jokes and cracking, and it was as good as a goodbye as you're going to get. But once that was finished, I had to put the phone down, the Zoom down, and I knew that was the last time I'd ever see my dad again. Then you've got to ask that life lesson, because the challenge is, I had shows to do for the cricket. And I said to my wife, well, what do I do? She said, you tell them not to go, but you're not going. I said, but I've got a job to do. She said, just take a couple of days off and tell them. So I rang them up and I said, guys, I've just lost my dad. I can't do it. Can I have a couple of days? He said, yeah, no problem. And they fixed it. Now my dad, before he passed, he said, don't come back to the UK. I'll be gone. And he said, there's challenges because there's lockdowns and stuff and quarantine. You might not get home anyway. He said, go do your cricket. Go and do your gig. Look after your family. So I did. And I went on and did the next 8 gigs. What's a life lesson that I'm trying to share with you here? I'm asking you the question now. What does this story resonate with you? What do you get out of this? Keep going. Anything else?
Enjoy the moments when they are there, not just because there is a deadline.
Absolutely, you've got to care for the people around you because you never know when they're going to take it away from you. Anything else? I know some of you are in shock. As you can tell, it's not easy for me to tell the story.
But there's always going to be curveballs, whatever your plan is.
Everything's got curveballs in it. Everything's got challenges. Here's my version of a life lesson. It's not what happens, it's what you do next that matters. You're always going to get challenges, you're always going to get difficulties, you're always going to get things that break you. But remember the hero's journey, the resurrection. This is part of your journey as a mentor, as a hero. You go through it and it's about what decisions you ask. And for me, I asked Max, what do I do next? Because I was broken. And Max went in and Max finished off the next 8 gigs. Not me. But Max could step up and I was like a little boy at the side. The next thing I did was create the Industry Icon program. I'm not doing this as a sales pitch here, I just want to tell you how I dealt with it. I realized that because I was on my own during the pandemic, virtually, and I hadn't really made new friends, I never wanted to have anybody go through that situation again. So I created a program to teach people what I'm teaching you right now. And so far, the Industry Icon program has looked after 40 decision makers around the world who I've never met face to face, but we do it online. I've got a community called the Game Changers, who are people that are all decision makers, who will also learn how to do the skills of branding, talking, positioning themselves. And right now I've got a WhatsApp group of 150 people that I'm taking through a thing called Turbocharge Your Career as a 30-day challenge. I'm doing it for them for free. Why? Because some of them will join me in my programs, in my community, that I'll never allow myself to feel on my own again. I'll never let anybody who comes to meet me and wants to work with me or wants to be in my community to feel like they're on their own ever again. I don't mind admitting that I've had to deal with mental challenges as a result, or emotional challenges. I'm a hypnotherapist. I know what they are, but you can't be a brain surgeon on yourself. You will find these things as you go through and start creating your world. And if you've taken on board what I've shared with you, then you have become unstoppable too. Give yourselves a round of applause for being unstoppable. So a last thought on that before we break into the exercises. I love this particular phrase, and every politician every now and again pretends that they've invented it. They haven't done. In fact, I'm not even sure it comes from, I know Margaret Thatcher said it, I know Gandhi said it, but Lao Tzu apparently said it in Chinese previously. I'll read it out to you. Watch your thoughts because they become words. Watch your words because they become actions. Watch your actions, they become habits. And watch your habits because they become character. And then watch your character because it becomes your destiny. So all starts with your thoughts. So whatever we talked about today, some of you will embrace it and do stuff with it. Some of you will wait to see what you need to do. But whatever you're thinking is exactly what you're going to have. And whatever you're thinking is exactly what you're going to get as your legacy for who you are and what you did to the world. So again, going back to jump and grow wings on the way down is the way I drive it, and I want to teach you now with the exercises exactly how to do that. Any questions before we do that? Because there's a long chat and a long introduction to storytelling. Anything you want to ask before we move on? Anything I didn't cover? Anything before we go into exercises that you wanted to ask about what I've gone through so far? Please.
So just maybe a recap on a starting point. So the starting point is the who you are question. Is that right?
It is. I'm going to show you exactly what that is in a moment. So I'm going to go through every step for you so you're able to understand that. Any other questions?
Yeah, you've positioned it also, obviously we are in a work environment and so forth, but I mean, if the destiny is not, I need to make sure I have food on the table for my family and so forth, but it is just about how you go through life, and it's not, there is no economic dimension to this. Do you have the same path? I mean, is that how you want to be, just with your friends or family and your brand there? Because you're also defined to a certain extent, and it might be completely detached from an economic dimension. Does that work or not?
It does work, but what I think is the answer to your question is not about necessarily how I feel. It's about how everybody else has their race in life that they're running towards and how it affects. Everyone's got different versions of themselves. For me personally, I'm on a journey to see what happens next, but I'm driving it myself. And it's got economics in it, and it's got the next thing for me is to actually discover where I left the gym. Because it wasn't a problem for me before, and it's still not a problem now, but my wife says, you're a fat boy, exactly what you are. So I think everybody has to choose what it is they want out of life to be able to move that forward. But remember, as my father experienced, and my dad had actually said to us, by the way, I Zoom my mum every day. I've done for a year and a half, every day. My dad said to me, and my mum, when we worked out what could happen, he said, if I go into a coma, or if it's really difficult to deal with whatever I've gone through, don't wake me up. Let me go. I've had a good life. It's all right. I don't want to be that guy who's on a resuscitator. Just let me go. I'm fine with that. If you can't say that to yourself right now, you're doing something wrong. If I don't go, if today's my last day, then I know that I've had an amazing time. Thank you very much for everything, and goodbye. If you can't do that, and it's not economic, you can't take it with you. You can't take any of it. So it's a combination of a lot of different things. What matters to you? But for me personally, what matters is the interactions with everybody and going on my journey and enjoying the days and not beating myself up too badly if I mess up, which I do a lot. And just laughing and just moving on. My daughter, when she was very small, the first thing we taught her was when she fell over and hurt herself, we'd laugh at her in the face. Laugh. So eventually she stopped crying. She said, oh, this is funny. And she was able to do that. The other lesson I taught her, from the moment she could understand speaking, is if your mom and your dad and your teachers and your friends and everybody you know disagrees with you, but you really believe that you're right, tell them that they can kiss it. Now you shouldn't say that to a 2-year-old, but I did. You didn't tell the rest of the boss, tell them to kiss it. Why? Because so much of us are spent worrying what everyone else is going to think. And you get into ruts and you get treated badly. That ability to start thinking for yourself is massive. I don't know if that answered your question. Right, I want to get you guys into exercises. I'm going to be around anyway, so if you want to ask me questions, I'll be around for a bit. Okay, everyone got that? I think everyone got this, didn't you? Okay, good. The agenda was to make you unstoppable, to empower you, create a new game and mindset, overcome imposter syndrome in 3 steps, make you a great storyteller, and watch you becoming unstoppable, which hopefully we have done. We've got an exercise for you on your tables. Now, when we talked about the exercise that we're going to do, we had a Zoom call a couple of days ago, and we were all kind of like this brainstorming, I'll say it was, but we didn't have a clue what we're going to do. So the idea is, by now you're probably chomping at the bit to work out what should be your exercise. Your exercise for me is this. Work out a story for a challenge that you have in your job or your collective job, or make it up, it's up to you, but ideally use a real life story so you know that you're playing with something properly. And I'll give you 15 minutes as a community, as a group, to be able to work out what it is that you want to deliver as a story. Remember the Hollywood bit, remember you're the mentor, remember the hero, and remember the different things that the now versus the future for an elevator pitch at the end. It doesn't have to be an elevator pitch, but it's a great summary for it as you have it. and then present it to the room. And as you present it to the room, you can do anything you want. You can say, good afternoon, everybody. You have to do anything you want, okay? But there's no wrong. There's a learning curve. And that's all it comes down to. So does everybody know what we've got to more or less do? I'm going to leave this up on the board. You've got your books there. The books are designed for you to take away. I don't expect you to read it all right now, but after we're finished, that 15% of what you retain, hopefully that book has it all written in, the do's, the don'ts, what you should aim at, that's what it's designed to have. This is what I would recommend that you have as a format. Okay? I'll return back to this page in a moment. You already had this, they've shown you, but there's other elements. You know, think about you, your avatar, and so on. In fact, I won't spend too long with this. I'll go through it very briefly. So a business story creates a hook. This is all in your books. Then you set the context. In fact, I'm not going to do this, forget it. You just do your thing based on what we talked about, and I'll leave you with this scene. Okay? That's basically what you've got to deliver, because I could talk forever, but I know you want to. 50 minutes starts now.
Just that.
Okay, should we do a story?
Yes.
So we have a volunteer. Is that you?
Yeah.
Ah, right. Who's going to do that? So there's no pressure on you around here, apart from the fact of what we'd suggest is you do the opening and the closing to get a round of applause at the end of it.
That's right.
Okay, so I'm not going to introduce you. I'm going to let you, watch out for this, I'm going to let you walk into the room. I'm going to record it for you as well. Hold the room and say your story. If you have a call to action or any questions, feel free to do that because interaction works really well as well. But at the end of it, just say thank you very much for being an amazing audience. Give yourselves a round of applause and we'll all go crazy for you.
Yeah. We will.
Watch this. Thank you very much for being an amazing audience. Give yourselves a massive round of applause. That's all yours.
That's what you need.
Hello, everyone. It's still not too late to say good morning, right? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Wouldn't it be an even better morning if we can eliminate disease, make it a thing of the past? What do you think? You go with that? All right, that's what I'm here to talk to you about. How many of us have lost a loved one or a friend to cancer? If you have, give me a show of hands. Anyone? Well, it's not a feeling that you want to feel. What you want to do is be part of the solution, and you can do that. We have been fighting cancer for decades, with science, with research, with knowledge, and it's been kind of working. We started with the chemotherapies, the targeted therapies, and in our region, we've been bringing more and more of those solutions to patients, but still, we're not there yet. We need to do more, because believe it or not, 1 out of every 5, people living on this earth will actually get cancer, and many of them will lose the battle. But science and our commitment is there to help and get in the way and enable us to fight cancer. And I want to talk to you today about our new cell therapies, the CAR-Ts, which actually use science to enable our own bodies to fight cancer. They make the hero come from within. And isn't that the best thing you can ever have? Make your body able to fight cancer and get over it. But in order to do that, we need a lot of commitment. We need a lot of partnership. We need to work together. Industry, researchers, scientists, governments and authorities, healthcare systems, together so that we can build the infrastructure, build the knowledge, build the capability to make CAR-T be manufactured next door so that when one of your family members needs it, it's only a step away. And you know what? We have had so many successful stories in actually eliminating disease. We have almost eliminated hepatitis. We have made HIV a chronic disease. It's not a death sentence anymore. We can do that to cancer today. And we do it empowered with science, with commitment, with collaboration, by together today committing that we will build the infrastructure in our country to be able to administer CAR-T in the upcoming 2 years. We need to establish 3 centers of excellence, and what we can do is bring the world experiences locally here and the expertise and the knowledge, so that we set this region to be a hub, best in class, ready for patients' access on day one, so that at the end of the day, we can eliminate cancer.
Super.
Wow.
That's fantastic. A couple of things, if you don't mind me saying. What I would say is two things. First of all, I made a mistake by showing you only how to do a big gig with everyone cheering. If you're doing a corporate event or you're doing a boardroom, you don't want to have that big cheer because they won't do it. They'll just stare at you like you shouldn't be here, like Coco McCloud has just walked in.
Of course.
So when you're talking to a corporate group or you want to have the same 3 impacts with people, say, good afternoon everybody. Is everybody okay? Shall we begin? Because if they say, good afternoon everybody, then they don't say anything bad, but it means put your phones down. Is everybody okay? No, I've got to go and do something, so you wait. Then they come back. Is everybody okay now? Yes. Shall we begin? Yes. So you have that. And when you finish, rather than getting that massive round of applause and a Mexican wave around the boardroom table, which again doesn't happen very often, you say, thank you for your time. Has the same impact. There's no applause, but they go, oh yeah, I gave you my time, that's great. So it works very well like that. Another trick I'd say, because I know that you're conscious about time, is when you're a woman, lower your voice down a little bit. It carries more gravitas and more power. So if you watch politicians that are female, they get more power by just lowering it a bit, and everyone thinks they've got a lot more weight behind what they say. It's really, really effective. Watch anybody who's in power doing it, and it makes that impact. Also, with the story that you tell, and again, it was my fault for throwing it out there by make everyone cheer. The story that you told needs to be done with the Wi-Fi code of the audience on the journey that you need to take them. So we started with happy, and we talked about cancer, and it was kind of like, I feel a bit bad laughing because the story is a bit like that. When I told my story, I changed my mood and slowed it right down to take people at a pace where they would have it. Be very aware about resetting the room the way you want it to be for your story to be effective. And if you've got a mood where people are really happy and you want to take them on a journey, change the mood. Just say, I want to tell you something really serious. Shh. But I want to tell you this because it's really important. Then when you've reset it the way you want it, then carry on talking. And then we'll wait. We'll wait until you do it the right way. I love what you talked about. It was very inspirational. It didn't have characters in it, apart from obviously the clients would be the hero and you would be the mentor to take them on that journey. So it did follow the pattern, which is, it was more like a motivational speech or a press conference than necessarily a story that you would share with people. There was a number of different ways of doing it. Play with it. The thing I think was missing from there was a case study. If you'd used a case study in that, like there's a woman that I was talking to the other day, and then we took her on blah 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 and put that in the middle of it, then that would have been perfect. But what you did was great, and your gravitas of working the audience, you've got a lot of power in doing that, and you're very good at doing it. So keep doing it. Very good. Sorry.
What about body language? When you're setting the mood, do you need to walk around?
No. Very great question. First thing is you train them or they train you. That's what's established with good morning everybody, all that stuff. It trains them in 8 seconds to be your audience. The other thing is some people do a little bit of a dance. You did do a little bit of a dance, moving around like that as you're talking to people. And it can be that you don't notice it, it's a subconscious thing. But there's more power in owning your space. So for me, I hold my ground most of the time. I only moved from side to side because of the fact I wanted to make sure I wasn't blocking the screen for people. I moved across like that. For me, I put my feet firmly on the floor. I move down slightly like that. And what happens is, the way I test this is, if in martial arts, if somebody came up to me and tried to push me now, I would move like that. But until I'm actually grounded, I would go like that. So what happens is when you're talking to people, it's like playing energy tennis. I get it like that and I serve it across to them, and they serve it back, and so on. So your energy has to be a broadcast. That's what I said about your voice at the very beginning. So when you share it with an audience, you need to be in the right kind of position. Now, the way I do it is the way that I feel comfortable as a man doing it. I've only seen 1 or 2 people who are women who are able to do it in a different way than just holding it like a headmistress. I saw one woman who I was working with, training her, and she was all over the place. But she had a style. She was an influencer who was used to talking to cameras, and so I couldn't really pick her up on the fact that she wasn't doing it the right way, because it was really effective in her own way. So you'll find a style that works for you, but until you do, I suggest what you have is your feet about shoulder length apart, comfortable, hands like this. Don't have your hands crossed or clasped, because then you have to open them like this. But what happens is if your hands are like this, you can then open and do body language and do stuff like this. Because what happens is if somebody doesn't speak English as a first language, which I mean this room is probably a classic example, but you're all at a really high level, so you probably do talk in English most of the time. But if people have to translate what you're saying to their own language, then sometimes the body language stuff makes a big difference. So when I talk about you and talk about me and I talk about the fact that my family are back at home or whatever it is, just those extra bits make a big difference. But don't get scared into doing some kind of Macarena. You know, sometimes people do that. Oh, they hold a microphone. A microphone should be about a fist apart from your face. Sometimes they go, oh, how are you? Great, okay. So members start talking like that and you can't hear it at all. What you need to have is a feedback loop that's set up, which is energy to the audience, the noddies of people getting you, but also when you're speaking, you should be able to hear your voice coming back through the speakers if you've got a microphone. If not, one of the great tests that I do, and it's a really powerful one when you're going on at a conference and people are talking or they're busy, I go on and I'll say, can you hear me at the back of the room? If you can, give me a wave. And I'll get away from somebody at the back of the room. But what it also does is it says, I'm watching all you guys in the center and I can get you if I need to. And it makes them behave. I have done gigs where I've walked around the room and it changes the dynamic of a room. There's nothing wrong with that. So if I'm standing here, because I want the presentation like this, it's fine. But also I could find if I walk around, and people start getting worried about this now. I'm walking around, I'm talking to you. I'm talking about the effectiveness of knowing who you are and what you do. And if I stand next to you and say, I love what you're wearing today, it's fantastic. I look forward to you going to come on stage and speak now. And you'll go, don't come near me, I don't want to be here. But you have power that you can use by moving around the room as well. Sometimes, especially if you're doing a presentation around a boardroom, most people, when they do it, they just stand up where they are or they sit down where they are. If you stand up, there's a level of power you create in that room. If the people in the room are more senior than you stand up and you look more senior to more senior people because of just that. It's subconscious, it's like that. And if you've got to sit around the room and you walk around as you're speaking and you're pointing out this, it really is very powerful at driving it. And there's one more thing I'll say about positioning. You're all in boardrooms on a regular basis. When you sit down in a boardroom, I'm going to read it for everybody now. Where should you sit? If you go into a client's office, where should you sit? Boardroom, should you sit?
To see the door.
Completely right. Why?
Because that allows here. If I see the door, if I see somebody's entering. So that gives me more power.
Gives you more power.
It's more confidence.
You don't need to watch your back because the danger could come from there.
That's true. But you're absolutely right. You're both absolutely right. It's like cavemen. When you walk in, it's difficult with somebody else's because you go into somebody else's office and they're sitting there like this. But how many times have you been in a meeting where you're talking away about what you want to talk about and they're not paying attention? You look around and there's somebody at the door who's just going like that. And so
as you know, as you're presenting in a boardroom, right? And you're supposed to be controlling the scene. You're supposed to be controlling the meeting. But what I've noticed, I don't know if this is our company or this is the majority, they do that, is when you're presenting, they get up and they walk up they stand next to you. They're like looking at the screen right next to you. And it's like, well, how do you control that? How do you tell them, go back, sit down? It's like, because then you're presenting, they're like all standing next to you, looking at the...
How many people?
It happens quite often. Like,
I mean, how many people in the
maybe
room?
if there's like 10, 15 people, there's like 4 or 5 will get up and they're like standing around. right? You notice that?
You're an attractive guy.
Exactly.
Stop wearing the aftershave. The aftershave works really well. I've never had that situation before because clearly I'm not as sexy as you. But here's what I would say: is you run that room.
Yeah.
So if it's natural for them to stand up and go next to you, you can do an interrupt and say, "Sorry, can I ask you why you're coming so close?" And what you do to get anybody to change the mood like that is you run it as a collective decision. So, for instance, when I set a room, if I'm hosting a big event, I'll turn around and say, right, by the way, the fire exits are here, 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 and here. Please put your phones off. If anything rings, I will take the phone off you and sell it on eBay. And I say, so if somebody's talking next to you, please tell them to stop. And if somebody's on their phone, we can still hear you, so tell them to stop as well. Is that agreed? And everyone goes, yeah, that's fine. Now I've passed it onto the room. So they will police each other if it comes up. So if you're finding that people are standing up and going out of the way, what I would do is, without embarrassing them, I would say, can I just check on something? I know you guys want to see it. Do you want a copy of this presentation? I'm more than happy to send it to you if that's what you're happy to do with the details. But I would say, because you're standing up, you're probably blocking a few people. Can we get everyone to sit down? Is that okay with everybody? And you get collective buy-in to it, that everybody is going to sit down, and then I'd run it from that. Unless there's a specific reason. Sorry, go on.
Or you can stop talking, because they'll realize something is wrong. Right?
They probably won't. If they're going to stand up and stand next to you and look at the screen and then start picking stuff out of your hair, the odds are that they've gone past that point. But when somebody talks to me, you're absolutely right. If I'm in the middle of a presentation and somebody goes on their phone, I could embarrass them by saying to them, stop going on your phone, but then it's me versus them. I just go quiet and stare. Then the whole room stares at them until they realize, and the first thing they do is they go, like that, they try and hide it, and I just stop. And then they eventually stop talking. I'll call you back. I say, thank you so much. Can we just establish now that nobody picks up the phone in this session? If you're going to do it, take it outside. Is that okay with everybody? Yes? Good. Nobody will dare do it after that. So use the collective of the group to police that situation.
But it's true that there is this thing of, oh, I've been sitting the whole day, sitting is a new cancer, so you need to always be standing up when you be on the computer. In meetings, you need to stand up and do. So there is this culture that is developing, and as a result, you have probably more of 4 or 5 people coming closer to you as well. So.
I understand that. It's difficult to police. I would say, is it you that's running the meeting, or are you one of many in the meeting?
So it's a session that you're presenting during the meeting.
Right.
So you're not running the meeting, but you are your session, but as you're presenting, you're responsible for that time, right?
Got you.
And maybe people don't identify that they still take it as part of, that you're not the one running the whole session, the whole board the whole day. So they get up, start walking, they start leaning against the walls, and they want to move around. Like you said, people don't want to keep sitting down. But it gets distracting to you as a presenter as well, that half your audience are not, you don't know if they're paying attention.
Exactly.
Right?
I think the challenge is that you don't want to disrupt the energy of the room in the direction it's taking, but you want to make sure that the end result is still that you're going to get that buy-in. If you're not running the room, I would have a conversation with whoever is running the room early to establish rules of engagement and say, I've noticed in previous meetings that people get up and walk around. I'm not sure if they're paying attention. Can you just look after that? What I suggest you do is we just take more breaks if you're tired, or if you need to exercise your legs and stuff, you stand up for a bit, but leave space around the presenter so you don't distract them. If you say that to them, then you've passed over the job of running the room to them, and you've brought in it for them. So if they don't do it, it's not your fault, but you've asked them once, and we should be able to take care of it from that. It's basically training them to do it the right way. People will sit down, but as you say, you've been there all day. It's unfair to make them sit. But I always get distractions. I'm a stage hypnotist as well, so I do hypnosis shows and get people to do crazy stuff on stage. It's incredible, and you have to be ultra in charge of everything that happens in a room, because if you get distracted, it's not going to work. But once you've got it up and running, Doesn't matter what anybody does. You've got people on stage who are going to do crazy stuff, and it's going to be amazing. So I would just look at the breakdown of what the challenges are, and just sort them out before you start, rather than try and fix them when they're happening, because then people get offended. And I didn't realize I was doing it, and all the rest of the stuff. Does that
I always wondered if that was real or not.
It most 100% is.
Really?
100%.
Not that I want you to try it on.
No.
But I'm just saying. I always
Okay,
wonder-
right, here's the thing. Let's do
Sorry.
a thing here. Everybody stand up. Okay? Right?
Sorry, I got you guys in trouble.
Alright, everyone put your right hand in the air like this. You see? Put your right hand in the air like that. And I want you to turn your hand into a gun. See that? Into a gun. Okay, and turn your gun into a circle. I want you to put it here. Okay? What I want you to do is look at your circle, look at my face. Look at your circle, look at my face. Circle, face, circle, face, circle, face, circle, face. And now put it on your chin. Okay? Very good. How many people got a chin on the side of their head?
Oh.
How many people got a chin down here? Sit down. Right, sit down, sit down. Give me some round of applause. Now, when I do a hypnosis show, what I do is I do a number of different exercises to see who are most suggestible people. And part of that is I get people to do exercises where their hands move and they do all this. And the people that, what I do is I get them to lock their hands as a way of locking their hands. So some people can't open their hands after I've told them. And then I get them to come on stage, I get them to sit down, and I do what's called a deepening. I take them deep into trance state. And then from a trance state, they're the ones that are most best for the show. You can get them, if you Google stuff online, you can see the shows I've done and all the rest of it. Get them to speak Martian language, get them to get married to each other. I'm serious. They turn into cheerleaders, they all dance, it's crazy. I can get guys to turn into lap dancers and run around the room dancing on other men's laps, and especially ones with bald heads, we love that. But it's all real. And what I find as a host and a presenter is I love the fact it was only me and a hostile audience and a microphone and music. That's all I've got. And as a speaker, it's a real challenge, because if you get it wrong and don't get the steps right, you'll end up looking stupid. But there's one more thing I'll just say to you, because I know you've got to go to lunch, it's unfair for me to carry on. The best shows I've ever done are the ones where you're advertised and people pay for a ticket. Because people who pay for the stuff have got it in their mind that they're going to have a good time with hypnosis in it. So they're either skeptics and they think it's rubbish, or they're kind of interested and might try it themselves, or they've done it and they think it's great, or do it again, or they just want to observe. But everybody's got a subtype of with hypnosis involved. If I stepped up in a shopping mall and said, right, let's do a hypnosis show, people just go, who are you? Why should I do it? No. And it's really difficult. So the more you can get people involved in it and pre-prepare them, the better results you're going to have. So it might be that you send a memo to this group of people of saying, can we just establish some rules? I respect you all, but I just think it's easier for some of the presenters who are not so used to doing it. Can we establish that you don't stand in front of them or next to them while they're trying to speak? Can we establish that we're going to take a break, declare it in between speakers, and we'll take a coffee break for 5-10 minutes to stretch your legs. And you set the rules before they get there, and then you'll never have to worry about embarrassing somebody.
Great, thank you.
Dave, are you joining us for lunch?
I would love to, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So
You've been an amazing audience. Give yourselves a massive round of applause.